When is terror not terrorism? The British public are subjected to attack after attack upon our way of life. Attacks that undoubtedly spread fear, horror and anger throughout our country. We're often told that acts of horrid crime like mass stabbings do not meet the conditions for terrorism under the Home Office's definition. It's often the case that other boxes have been ticked other than this line. The use or threat, and this is the Home Office's statement, by the way, the use or threat must also be for the purpose of advancing a political, religious, racial or ideological cause. Now, I'm reminded of the Southport attack. The establishment dubbed Rudakabana as a Welsh choir boy, the deranged man who stabbed 3 innocent children to death, who we, of course, were told was not a terrorist. This is the same sick spawn of Satan who was later convicted of an offence, guess what, under the Terrorism Act for possessing an Al-Qaeda training manual titled Military Studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrants. And of course, he was also harvesting ricin in his bedroom. Oh, on top of that, he had a picture of Jihadi John on his computer. Well, so much for not being a terrorist-related incident, eh? Well, in some cases, there seems to be, in my opinion, a concerted effort by the establishment to avoid depicting any act of violence by a sick group of individuals who are out to spread terror and, in my opinion, as enemies of the state. They just don't want to call it as it is, do they? And I think it's the same reasons why the Pakistani rape gangs got away with their rape of Britain for 30 years, and the same reason why Axel Rudakabana got away with not being called a terrorist. I think, and I really do think this, it's to preserve the one thing the establishment have worked harder on to protect than anything else in Britain. And it's this line you hear a lot: diversity being our strength. For a long time now, the left in this country have campaigned tirelessly to paint white British people, and actually British people in general these days, as imperialists, white supremacists and genocide supporters. They have debased Christianity, the values in this country that have stood for hundreds of years, and even call our flag a symbol of racism. If you criticise mass immigration and illegal migration, well, you're a Nazi racist. Is it any surprise that constant attacks on our soil are conducted by people of non-white British ethnicity and heritage? The left, the hate the left have stirred up against its own people in this country is utterly reprehensible. The same hate we now see thrown around at politicians like Nigel Farage, well, as it has been in the media over the last few months. Anyone who disagrees with the left is often called a fascist, a white supremacist, and so many other stupid words. Words, however, have repercussions, and we're seeing them being played out now on our streets, aren't we? For too long, we've been too tolerant. Too tolerant of black kids carrying knives and stabbing each other because politicians like Theresa May were worried about racism. So what did they do? They cut back, stop and search. Too tolerant of Islamists and sectarians because jihad and globalise the intifada have different meanings in Arabic, according to the Met Police. Too tolerant of crime on our streets because police are too busy with social media posts and the left being offended over hurty words. Too tolerant with sectarians intimidating police forces, so we have to ban Jewish football fans from coming to a football game out of fear that perhaps sectarian Muslim men will kick off in a city. Too tolerant with sectarians infiltrating our democracy when we must be told we must accept mass immigration from people and cultures that have no desire to integrate with us. The law needs to be tougher and radically changed. Our politicians need to stop pandering to minorities and grow a backbone. And importantly, British people must stop fearing being called far-right and racist because you state perfectly reasonable, factual statements. And in the latest baffling and I think frankly offensive piece of government messaging, Defence Secretary John Healey has told Brits today that threats from other countries, including terror, require people like you at home to quote, I quote this, be more vigilant. That's the message. You've got to be more vigilant. He added, there's no reason for the rest of us not to get on with our lives. Oh, well, that's easy to say, isn't it, when you're chauffeured around with taxpayer-funded security guards, isn't it, John? Well, today, terror will be felt by every British person who boards any form of public transport. We cannot go on living like this anymore. Tough, decisive leadership and action is needed to reverse the rot we've allowed to fester in our country. And the sooner we say enough is enough, the better. Right, I want to get the thoughts of my panel. Businessman and activist Adam Brooks, senior reporter at Guido Fawkes, Ellie Wheatley, and Labour councillor Sebastian Salek. Adam, I'll start with you, because I'm given a concoction there of a lot of things. And I think what's happened to this country, a big part of our problem over the last 20, maybe 30 years, is that the British people have been told, suck it up, shut up, you are a dinosaur for saying what you say. How dare you be worried about mass immigration? How dare you? You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're far right. And those calls are getting even louder today than they ever have been.
As a middle-aged white man who is against illegal immigration and pushes back and has spoken out for many years, I've been called all of those labels. And even panellists, left-wing panellists on these shows, on this channel, have put a target on my back by calling me far right and labels similar. At the end of the day, this country, I believe our judiciary has a lot to play with why crime is out of control. We have liberal judges that are not putting boys and men behind bars that carry machetes, zombie knives, Rambo knives around London. They're caught maybe multiple times and they're getting suspended sentences. That is outrageous, especially in a country where we're putting people that write hurty words or hateful things on the internet away. Who is more of a danger to society? Someone that is hateful or racist on the internet, or someone that goes out with a 2-foot knife capable of chopping someone's head off, and they are given suspended sentences. Now, again, in just a few days, maybe a week or so, myself and former police officer Norman Brennan are going to have another petition out there for stop and search to be upped and for 5-year mandatory sentences for carrying a knife. We need to bypass these liberal judges and have no choice. If you're caught with a knife, you're going to prison. Without a deterrent and better education in schools, let's show kids the inside of a prison cell. Let's scare them. Yeah. Because I didn't know that as a kid, what could happen if you broke the law. Show them, take them, or mock up a prison cell and put them in there for 30 seconds, and they will soon realise that as they're growing up, if they break the law, they're going to be in one of those rooms for 5 years, 10 years. It would scare the hell out of me. Yeah. And that's what we need to do now, realism.
I totally agree with you, Adam, because this is not just about optics anymore, it's about lives. And we need some real political courage from Starmer and the rest of his cabinet to call this out, to increase stop and search. I mean, there was a study just this year by a former Met chief scientist officer who said that a drop by 66% in stop and search actually led to 44 knife-induced murders and injury, and more than 1,000 injuries from 2014. So we've also got to, as you said, have really strict sentences for anyone carrying a knife. And instead, what we see is John Healey, the Defence Secretary, coming out and not ruling out airport-style security at train stations, putting the burden on ordinary Britons rather than tackling violent criminals instead. And actually, by the way, Labour's current plan is to cut 300 roles in British Transport Police. We've got to be investing in these services so that these sort of horrific attacks that, by the way, are happening far too often, we are almost becoming desensitised to it, don't happen. By the way, just let's not forget the man who was killed in Uxbridge, who was stabbed to death for walking his dog just this week. Not a single peep from Starmer or Mahmood on that. Why did it take more than 10 people to be stabbed on a train for them to come and speak out? Well, then you only get thoughts and prayers, don't you? That's the problem. And Sebastian, you know, police stations are closing at record rates. And I do hold the last government accountable for cutting that. I mentioned Theresa May on stop and search. I'm not being unfair here. Sadiq Khan promised that when his pals in Labour got into power, which they are now in power, that police stations in London would be protected. He's actually cutting police force in London. This is the problem we've got, isn't it? Is that time and time again, politicians of all colours in this country
country don't prioritise the safety of British people. At the same time, they're letting in hundreds of criminals, as we were reporting earlier on, sex offenders, rapists, murderers into the country because of mass immigration.
I don't buy that argument because I don't understand the political logic by it. Which politician in their right mind would willingly increase crime?
Well, it's inevitable if you're going to bring in millions of people into the country and you don't increase police officers and you don't build prisons. Of course, your crime is going to go up, isn't it? Mathematically, it makes sense.
I think a lot of this, you're right, does fall on the situation in the prisons and the situation with the police that we got from the last government. There is, of course, room to improve on both of those. I like what I'm hearing from the rest of the panel on sentencing. I think we have to be tough on knife crime. But there's another element to this that we've overlooked, and it's about nurturing young boys. And I see it in my community, making sure they get off to the right start in life. And it's things as simple as investing in youth clubs, making sure they have somewhere to go, they have positive role models who show them what growing up and being a man is really about. Because if you take your eye off the ball...
I get what you're saying.
They stray.
But youth clubs aren't going to solve the problem here. We've got a gang culture problem, particularly on some of the most notorious estates. And then young people are getting drawn in by different cultures. Like I see some of them watching drill music. Some white kids in Peterborough acting like they're Jamaican gangsters.
Well, I don't know if you know these stats, but 61% of knife murderers in London are black males. Yet they make up less than 10% of the London population. That is a serious cultural issue, and we need to tackle that. I work with a charity called Wickers that fight back against knife crime and try and educate many from the black community, young kids. Brilliant charity, you know, getting them off the streets, educating them, giving them different pathways in life, and we need to do that. But people are scared to address the fact that it is black men that are committing the most of these murders in London.
Yeah, because, Ellie, just briefly before we have to go, I just want to ask you, do you think that we have been afraid of being called racist and other silly smear words, and that's why we've got part of the reason, not the entirety, but part of the reason why we're in the problem we're in today?
Well, I think that definitely is a problem. Indeed, we saw that with the rape gang scandal. People were fearful of being labelled racist. And that means that we're not targeting a specific culture and group and helping them get out of what you were talking about, this sort of doom loop, doom cycle of not being able to break out of these situations where they do end up falling into criminal gangs. And that's why we've got to focus to help. It's not being racist, it's trying to work out where we need to send the most help.
OK,